Hey, fourth grade. We're going to get right into it. Our first art project for this week is going to go into something that might be a little bit challenging, and that's okay. It's actually going to be really cool because not only do you get to create art, you get to use it, and you get to test your friends and family around you. So the materials that you're going to need today are a marker, black marker, maybe a pen if you have it, a pencil, a piece of paper, some kind of piece of paper that is equal on either side. So a piece of printer paper works. And then something with a straight edge. If you have a ruler, that works. If you just have a note card or even a Post-it, that works. You just need something that has the straight edge. So step number one, you're going to get started by taking your piece of paper and creating some kind of image on it. Whether it is a neighborhood house, it can be a parrot, it can be anything you want it to be, because today we are creating a puzzle. So I created this little weird face, weird little portrait. And one thing I wanted to remember is I wanted to make, because it is a puzzle and I am going to be cutting it up, I wanted to put things that might confuse the person who's going to be figuring it out. So on the inside, I made it pretty easy. I had a lot of lines that somebody could, put together. But on the outside, I wanted to make sure it was a little tricky, so I put a lot of swirls. So that's something to keep mindful of. Now, after you have your image drawn, draw in a pencil first, draw light until you get it right? You can go ahead and trace it in marker, and then you can go and color it. So if you would like to, you can go and color it. You can color it in markers. You can color it in crayons. I have crayons here. You can color it in colored pencils. If you have thick enough paper, you can paint it. If you want to make it super hard, though, and include no color, so the person who's figuring out this puzzle, just use pencil and shade it in. So you could go in and shade it in. Remember, we talked about this when we did our hyperrealism, about dark and light shadows when it came to value. You don't have to do a face for this picture, but if you wanted to, you could always use that type of technique. Now, here comes the puzzle piece. You're going to take your paper and flip it over. We are not going to create the puzzle lines on the front. Then you're going to take your straight edge. I don't have a ruler with me, so I'm going to use a piece of paper, and you're going to create the sizes of your puzzle pieces. So I don't want to make mine too hard, so I wouldn't be creating them super small. You can if you want to. It's going to take a little bit of time, but if you're up for it, go for it. So I'm going to make mine about this size. So I'm just going in really slowly and giving myself a little map. Now the reason I'm doing this is you could do this without a paper, but if you start having all these puzzle pieces and you don't measure how big each piece is, you could have all these big pieces at the top and all these small pieces in the middle, and then guess what's going to happen? The person's going to figure it out. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of a advantage here. So I'm going to go to the other side, and it does not have to be perfect at all. And another cool thing is it doesn't have to be a traditional type of puzzle. It doesn't have to be those puzzles with just the curved shapes. You want to make it sharp and pointy, go for it. Now, the number one rule to remember when you're making puzzle pieces is when you're drawing and when you're cutting, it has to be precise. There's no room for extra pieces cut off. Everything has to be able to fit, so you can't have anything cut off. So I'm going to go in and make my puzzle pieces. I'm going to bring this one up here, and I'm going to do a little loop-de-loop and bring this one over here. I don't know, maybe like that. If you find it easier, you want to use your paper, go for it. Maybe you're the type and you're like, Miss Alsaid, I just want to do like sharp stuff. Go for it. You can do that too. I add a small piece right here. See, mine aren't 110% exact, and that's okay. I don't mind it. But But then I'm gonna go ahead, get all that done. I'll make it a little bit confusing. So when you get to parts like that, I do want to point out, when you get to parts like that, if you're making your puzzle areas a little smaller, you have to remember, will a scissor be able to fit through it? If your scissors, let's say your scissors aren't the sharpest, it's not going to be able to create a perfect cut over there, and then that's going to make your pieces not fit perfectly. So when in doubt, just make your pieces bigger. I don't know, like this, like a loop-de-loop, whoops. And that's why we use pencil. I don't want to see anybody using pen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh my gosh. You might be like, oh, Miss Alsayed, all you're doing is drawing like little inserts and you're not necessarily doing the other pointy part. Well, it's because when I create this, the other piece already has it created for it. Go again. And if it gets a little too tricky for me, I can always take this paper. Whoopsie. Okay. Okay, now I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I do want to kind of show you from what I have right now. So I'm just gonna show you how exactly you would go in when it comes to cutting it. So after I filled out my entire thing with my puzzle pieces, everything has to be matched perfectly. Look at how carefully I am when I'm going in with this scissor. I'm taking my time. And this is the part that's gonna take a little bit longer than what you expect. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this part's gonna be too long, I don't wanna make super small little curves and all that stuff, you can make sharp ones, you can make your puzzle big. You wanna make your puzzle 4 pieces? Go ahead and make your puzzle 4 pieces, that's fine too. At the end of the day, this one's even a little tricky for me. There we go. Okay, now I do wanna point something out. Do you see how I didn't make it perfectly right there? I didn't cut it perfectly out. Do not cut that piece off. Why not? You got the right answer, because if you cut that piece off, it's not going to fit perfectly. This is more so just a little guide for you to know what your puzzle pieces are going to look like. It doesn't have to be exact. Oh, you can't see, but I'm cutting it. Oh my Lord. All right, here we go. Like I said, a little tricky. All right, so after all is said and done, you're gonna cut all your pieces out, put them in some kind of container, put them in some kind of box, present them to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncle, auntie, whoever's at home, and ask them to figure it out. Remember, number 1 rule, don't cut off any extra pieces, and if you wanna make it super tricky, only use white and gray and pencil. All right, have fun. Post it to Class Dojo if you want me to see your final pieces.